I hope the last video didn't scare you off with a lot of technical terms like exposure and shutter speed and aperture and f-stop and all that stuff. We're going to take a few minutes now to look at how you actually control those so that the next assignment, when you start actually using those to try and create good pictures, is a little bit easier for you to do. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to take a look at the controls on a Canon Rebel T6, which is this camera right here. The controls that you are most commonly going to use in my class. There's a lot more to this camera than we're going to talk about today, but we're going to go through just the basics, the easy stuff, the stuff that you're going to use over and over and over again, so that when I say, now turn your shutter speed up a stop, you're just like, oh yeah, I'll just do that with my finger. And it becomes second nature. The more you get used to the camera, the easier it will be for you to get pictures that you like, because you're not going to be thinking as hard about like, oh, how do I brighten the picture up? You just do that automatically and you can focus on things like composition and light and getting the decisive moment. So let's take a look at these controls and give you the basics that you need to succeed in my class. Okay, so here we have the back of the camera, and you can see the buttons that we will be most frequently using in class. Would be the live view button here, which turns on the screen. And then you can see what's actually going on through the camera. There are some advantages to shooting in live view. When you adjust your exposure, you can actually see it happening at the time that you do it. The disadvantage of live view is that it's a little slower, so response time is not great. Now, when you just turn it on, you get this screen in the back, and you can see here's manual. The M means you're in manual exposure. We're shooting at 1/80th of a second. f1.8 there is our aperture. ISO 100, there's your light meter down below that. It says we're pretty well overexposed right now. If I increase my shutter speed, then it says we've got a good exposure. Auto white balance, AI servo focus. We're right now shooting with a timer. We can adjust that by going to continuous shooting. So that means that like when I hold down the shutter button, I will shoot more than one picture at a time, like this. Okay? And then it automatically reviews your pictures when you're done. And then it says my image quality right there is large JPEG. So that's the way we want it set up when we're shooting in class when we're in pandemic mode and we can't be in school using our Macs where we can edit stuff. Now there's the menu button here. We're going to do some quick settings. We're going to check two things. If you go all the way to the left, you can see image quality. As I just said, if we're in pandemic mode where we don't have access to the lab, I want you shooting large, fine JPEGs. That's the first option there. If, however, we are back in school and we have access to Lightroom and all that stuff with our Cool Macs, shoot RAW, because that lets you edit your pictures better. So let's keep it on large, fine JPEGs. And then over to the right, to the second to last option, which is the last yellow wrench. I want you to go down to Custom Functions, and then find option 8. Basically, you just scroll along the top. Right up here is where it says which option you're set to. Go to 8, hit Set in the middle, and bring yourself down to AE Lock/AF. If it's already set that way, you're good to go. That's turning on your back button focus. Let's take a look at the top of the camera to see some of the important buttons there, and then we're going to go through what they do. Up here, starting from top to bottom, here's the shutter release button, or sometimes I'll just call it the shutter button. This is the shutter dial. If you just if you turn it by itself, you adjust the shutter speed. To the right makes the shutter faster, to the left makes the shutter slower. This is your mode dial here. Leave it set to M. So see that white line right there? Make sure that that is lined up with the M so you're in manual mode. And your power on and off right here. This little button pops up your flash. We don't use the built-in flash because I hate the way it looks, so don't worry about that. So the shutter dial right up here changes your shutter speed. To adjust your aperture, your f-stop, which I use interchangeably, you hold down the AV button and then you twist the dial. If we look at the screen, right now I'm at f1.8. When I hit the button, it switches to select that. And now I'm making my aperture smaller by increasing the number. I'm making the aperture bigger by decreasing the number. By itself, I'm just adjusting the shutter speed. With the AV button, I adjust the aperture. If I want to adjust my ISO, I hit the ISO button. And then I can go to 200, 400, 800, 1600, whatever you want. The higher the ISO, the brighter the picture is. The AF button here, you get 3 choices. One shot, AI focus, AI servo. Keep it on AI servo. That means that whenever you're holding down the focus button, as long as you hold down that focus button, the camera will continue to seek focus. Speaking of focus, this is your focus button right here. So when you hold this down, the camera looks for focus. If we're in live view and we can see what's going on, the camera will focus where that little box is right there. So you can move that box around in live view using this like a D-pad on a video game. And then just hold down there it goes. You can see it going through focus, trying to find what it's doing. When you're not in live view, it'll continue to focus. If you're in live view, it'll grab that focus no matter what. White balance changes the way the colors are. That's your WB button right there. Generally, you want to stay on sunny, daylight, cloudy, or auto. If you know what kind of light you've got, set it. If you don't know, set it to auto. This button here is single shot. If you hold down the shutter button, oops, I didn't actually turn it on. Hold down the shutter button, you get 1 shot. Set continuous shooting, hold down the shutter button, you get a bunch of shots. Timer 10 seconds, it'll wait 10 seconds and then take a picture. Timer 2 seconds, it'll wait 2 seconds then take a picture. Timer continuous, it'll wait 10 seconds and then if you hit up, it'll take up to 10 pictures. And you can set that yourself. So let's set that back up to continuous shooting. If you want to take a look at the pictures you've shot, you hit this play button. You can hit display to cycle through different kind of information. And you hit left and right to cycle through the pictures that you've taken. This button here is the focus point selection. So right now it's set to focus on whatever's right in the middle. But you could say, oh, focus on the top, focus on the bottom, far left, far right, or in these corners here. And whatever box you've got it set to is where the camera is going to try to find focus. This little guy is a diopter. You probably will not use that. But if you find that your pictures are in focus, but when you look through the viewfinder, they look blurry, that means that your eyes aren't doing a good job with the viewfinder. They don't like it. But you can adjust the overall focus in there with this diopter by just twisting it till you find that pictures that are in focus also look in focus to you. So I want to show you how to change the lens and how to take the battery and the memory card out. So first, this little button right here releases the lock on the lens. Then you take hold of the lens and twist it counterclockwise. And then your lens comes right off. Generally, you want to hold the camera body down as much as you can. That way, dust is less likely to fly into it. And when you want to connect, there's a red dot here on the body, and there's a red dot on your lens. Line those two up, and then twist it back into place. Get a little jiggle to make sure it's always up, all the way on there. Underneath the camera is the battery compartment. Use your fingernail, pop that open. This little gray release right here lets the battery out. You have a charger that came in your bag. Looks very similar to this one. This is for an EOS RP, but the difference is like this much. So plug pops out like that. Stick it in the wall. The battery goes into the charger. There's only one way it can go in. If you feel like you're forcing it, you're probably doing it the wrong way. Find the better angle. To put the battery back in, you line up the pins with the pins in there. Slide it in, pop, goes right in. Right next to the battery is your SD card slot. Regular SD card goes right in there. Most of you will probably be shooting with micro SDs. That way you can easily get them into your Chromebook. Just make sure that when you put the micro SD card adapter, that it doesn't look empty like this one. Make sure that there's an actual micro SD card inside the adapter, or else it's not going to really work. But again, with that, you give a little push and it pops out. It's spring loaded. Push it in until you hear it click, and it stays in. Then close it up and you are good to go.